Hello. Apparently, I have to rotate it to stream in a portrait position. Hello, it is me, Miss Jarena Shooting Star, and I am back with another blog. Let me just tie my hair because I don't really like hair on my face. Kind of irritates me. But I am going to talk about, guys, the importance of growing your own food. Yes, I said it. You lot need to grow your own food. Do you know why? Um, well, Brexit is around the corner, and we may we may not even have access to the markets. So I predict that food prices will go up, and you lot better get used to eating vegetables because you're gonna have to eventually grow it because the shops aren't gonna be that full anymore. Yes, people, because of the uncertain situation of Brexit, food prices are already going up. Will we have access to the, market? Who knows? But I do see that I think there'll be problems in terms of having access to food, and there'll be rations. So one way to combat that is to actually grow food and start getting used to eating vegetables because that's what you're going to eat. That's even if you get vegetables. So, people really need to grow their vegetables. They need to have some little allotment somewhere and grow your own food. Eat potatoes, eat veg, and to be honest, it's good for you. So I can predict that, food prices going up, and you lot need to get back to your farmer roots, back in the day when our ancestors used to plough the fields, grow the field with seeds, water the field, that kind of stuff. But this time, you lot are going to do it by yourself. You don't have farmers working for you. You don't have like 10 kids to work the farm, because having more than one child, more than two child is not really something you do nowadays, is it? And it's frowned upon. So, yeah, you better get there, put on your gloves, and get used to growing your food, people. Get used to eating your veggies. And let's just hope you know how to cook. Because if you can't cook, those vegetables will be disgusting. So yeah, guys need to learn how to cook, and you guys have to get used to making veggies taste nice because you know that's going to be a lot of work trying to make vegetables taste nice, um, because they, most don't really taste that nice unless you know how to cook. So gone are the days of having meat on tap. Gone are the days of, ordering whatever you want on Uber Eats and getting all these people to ride their bicycles and drive it off to your home. Nope, 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 people. Brexit is changing everything. There will be shortages. And I think the hardest thing will be a shortage of sugar, basically. And they're not talking about it. Here they are talking about what's the deal, blah, blah, blah. But when you read between the lines, you can see what the problems will be. The cost of food will go up. And when people get hungry, they're going to act erratic, literally. Families are they're not coping with the cost of living and the price of food going up, and people literally being turned away from food banks. So the only solution that I can say is, I mean, if you happen to be from a minority background, people from minority backgrounds have never really had it easy. They've always struggled. So when times are tough, they don't openly go and, go to places like food banks. They try and be as, I'm not saying, but generally, like, they do try and be as, what's the word, resourceful and find a way, because of the culture and that whole pride and, not showing that they want to, that they're struggling or anything like that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in mainstream culture, but because people, from normal mainstream British society, they're so used to having things their way, so used to having everything on tap and everything on demand, that when that goes away, I think that they will be the ones suffering most than other communities who haven't really had much because they know how to budget in terms of coping with whatever it is they have, and but nonetheless will obviously affect them. Um, so yeah, Brexit is real, guys. It's a big deal here in the UK. What does that mean for the UK leaving the European Union? They won't have that safety glove of unity, of trading and things like that. They literally be left floating on the Atlantic Ocean like a dinghy boat, because that's a lot of people are not very sure what's going to happen. But I think the only thing we can do really is to just hope for the best and practice those farming skills, because I think a lot of people will need it in the future. Um, Another thing I want to talk about is um, basically accents. I just thought I'll practice a couple of accents, because sometimes, when you just have like a vision of somebody with a particular accent and you just hear their accent and you just sort of. So I'm going to practice my accent, and I'm going to start off with this one. Okay, you just have to guess what it is. Hello, 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 hello. My name is Harry. And you have to kind of guess what accent that is. The other one is, I don't think I understand what you are saying. Can you please make it clear? You have to guess what that accent is. And another one that could be is, what the hell is going on? Okay, so yeah, that's the accent part of the blog that I already put. I'm just trying to remember what else I wrote down. Yes, basically, Sadiq Khan, he put the most melancholy, killjoy, horrible Facebook post about Carnival tomorrow. First of all, he came up with a generic rubbish. Carnival is a very interesting cultural event in London that draws in millions of profits, because he's a proper capitalist. All he cares about is money. And then he comes out with, you know, over a paragraph that's like larger than, yeah, okay. So yeah. Um, anyway, it's unusually quiet tonight. So yeah. So basically, Sadiq Khan, he, he brought up the most killjoy post about Carnival, and how police will be surrounding the whole Carnival, and how knives will be checked, and it was just so depressing, honestly. Like, talk about killjoy, ruining the mood. I mean, it's already raining today, and that post just dampened it even more. I mean, he basically put a post out, and I don't think people will turn up now after he put that post out. I mean, he literally is trying to warn people not to go there, but he just linked crime with Carnival, and that was just uncalled for. These people have been doing their costumes all year round, and he goes and puts a comment like that about how police are going to be surrounding the event. Just thought that was a bit unfair, really. And yeah, it's very unusually quiet tonight. I mean, there's not a sound outside, so that's why I'm keeping my voice down. But yeah, Sadiq Khan, he literally killed the mood of the carnival holiday. It's currently bank holiday. There's no work on Monday. And this past 2 days, London will be celebrating the biggest carnival in Europe. Now, the Notting Hill Carnival, yes, from the film Notting Hill, because before that, Notting Hill was a black area. It was always been a black area since the 1940s, and they set up this carnival back in 1948. The Caribbeans that moved here after the war that stayed here. Um, so they basically set up this carnival, and it's been going on every year since 1948. it's a national holiday. Sadiq Khan went and put a post on Facebook saying, "Oh, Carnival is the most popular cultural event. We value London's diversity." And then he came out with a big, massive post about how, you know, if you're going to carry a knife, there'll be police, blah, blah, blah. Um, will be like literally a detailed information as to what the police are going to do. And it just ruined the mood. There was no need to do that. Like, there was no need to put such a negative post on Facebook. I understand he wants to impress the racists that troll him on his Facebook page. But, what about the black community of London that have to read that? Don't forget the black community of London voted for this Sadiq guy, yeah, this person of color, because let's be honest, not all people of color support, black people. They don't, especially through history. But this post was just uncalled for. This carnival is coming up tomorrow and Sunday, and he just dampened it like the rain that we see today by saying, the police are patrolling this side. We're going to be everywhere. There's going to be knife, what is it? Knife searches, and carnival's a happy time. And he just ruined it by saying, the police are really going to be very heavy handed, literally. But it's just like as if the black community of London haven't been through so many bad stuff. The last thing they need is the one enjoyment in their whole entire year. The one event that's been running since 1948, when Notting Hill Carnival, when Notting Hill area was their area, was a predominantly Caribbean area. Now it's an upmarket, bougie Russian area, where you literally play spot the black person. And Notting Hill Carnival is the historical, event that's happened every year, and that's the only legacy left from the black community of London. So, this is just one event. They don't go night clubbing, and it's just let them have it. And they obviously can't stop it because, it's the biggest carnival. Everybody comes to it. It's very famous. But he just ruined the mood. He literally ruined the mood by putting that post up. If you go on Sadiq Khan's Facebook page, you'll see what he put up. It was just dampener, a proper dampener. No need to do that. Moving on to other people of colour, I watched a documentary called Leicester's Asian, and I think it was on BBC Four, like that channel where they have all these documentaries. But the Asians of Leicester, they did a documentary, and they basically talked about, I think the anniversary since they came. They're Asians that originally lived in Africa during Idi Amin's reign in Uganda. Basically, when in Uganda got its independence, Idi Amin, the leader of Uganda in the 70s, kicked out the British Asians that were there during colonial times. Now, what happened was during colonial times, the British brought a lot of Asians from India into Africa, and they sort of classified the Asians as above the Africans. So, the whole thing of white supremacy and all that. Well, anyway, these Asians really thought that they were hot dog in Africa, and they treated the black people like crap. They had, literally the blacks in Africa at the time had no rights. The Asians can do whatever they want because the British gave them permission to do whatever they want. So quite rightly, in the early 1970s, when they got their independence, they remembered how the Asians were, treating the blacks, appalling racism in their own land. So Idi Amin kicked them out, and when they kicked them out, the British took them into England, and one of the biggest cities that they all moved to was Leicester. Now, these British Indians, they are hardworking, and a lot have, done very well in the UK. And this documentary that showed their life just basically was talking about, how they settled in the country and how they adjusted to changes, and what happened in their family. And it was quite interesting. It was well done. I mean, but what was really strange about it is they would just break out into songs. Like these Asians would start, British Asians would start singing about, their family and their husband, and it was almost like a Bollywood British style. So yeah, they would sing about their husband. They'll sing about and that relationship between the mother. I mean, it's nice to see different cultures in England represented and to hear different stories. That's definitely needed. But the singing and the men singing along, and when it comes to musical and singing, not everybody can sing, and it was so cringing, but definitely very, very interesting. The fact that they had people, singing about their life's experience, how they worked in the factory, how they ended up getting married. But even during the documentary, when one of the mums was talking, she said, one of the second generation Asian girl, she said how, yes, we Ugandan Asians, we're such hard workers. We are the right kind of immigrants that this country would like. Like, she was so sure of herself. She was like, yes, we're the right kind of immigrants. And I was like, oh my God, did she just say that? And on one of the clip, the I think because they were Hindu, and she was talking about, one woman was talking about how she fell in love with a Muslim who happened to be Indian, and the whole community were just really devastated about that, even though they're from the same country. It was just a religion. But the way, like, when they interviewed them, it was like, marrying a Muslim was the worst thing that could happen. And but the woman ended up marrying him, and they even said, like, openly, like, we had to accept him because we didn't want to lose our daughter. And then in the end, they were like, but he's great, we love him. And it's like, oh my God, like, I know that there's a big caste issue. And even one of the mothers, she's like, to be honest, I would like my daughter to marry an Indian because I think it's easier to marry your own culture. I like the honesty of that. At least they're honest, that they keep their culture, they marry within, even though they're second generation, they marry within. They were just very brutally honest, and talking about how they would rather marry their own. And it's amazing how they're not even directly from India. They're Indians that were planted in Africa for generations, but yet they maintain their Indian heritage. And when they got kicked out of Africa, they went to England and they still maintain the Indian heritage and somehow got observed back to India. So this is really amazing how they didn't lose their culture. It's very important to them, and it doesn't matter how many years they lived out of India during the colonial times, because they would have probably moved to India around 1900 or something. I mean, to Africa that time during the colonial, but they still maintained their culture, and it's just like, it's amazing to see how other nations, maintain their culture, like the Chinese that moved to America. They maintain their language, their culture, they marry within, and they've got such cultural pride. And even the children that were brought up in the UK, they live in Leicester, the mothers, they send their children to like Indian dance classes. So it's like all the girls get sent to the Indian cultural dance lessons, and they learn their heritage. It's just, they've been doing this for years. And but when black people, they want to do something like that, we're accused of being, racist, or, you know making, was it pushing out other people. But others openly do it, but yet they also integrate and sort of like use the system in a way, isn't it, to say, oh look, yeah, we are, we're British. But yeah, it's just found it really, really, really interesting documentary to watch. It's just, but if you can look for it, it's what's it called? Yeah, it's British Asians of Leicester, and it was literally aired the other day. Very interesting to see other parts of the UK, because I feel like for like how many years, 6 years, everything has become so London focused. London focused. Other parts of the country in the UK have been really ignored, and it's nice to see Leicester. I mean, Leicester just looks, it looks like an old northern city that used to be big back in 1800 when they used to make cotton. You can just tell it's got all that old infrastructure and the terraced houses, and yeah, and it's amazing because they did literally revive that city. I mean, for them to live in Leicester, they revived it, like, a big bunch of. So that just shows that immigration, can be good, because, it provides. It really does change an area, so it's not a bad thing. And they just got on with it. They moved there and they got on with it. So, yeah. So I don't know what the agenda is, but like I'm seeing a lot of posts on social media about the Africans of at that particular time that got rid of the Asians that were living in Africa, and seeing quite a lot. And I'm just thinking, what's with the anger with Africa? I mean, Africans have been through so much. Like they've lost their population due to slavery. They had to deal with this inhumane, disgusting racial categorization and all that, and now they're having like this sort of anti, oh look what the Africans did to us kind of thing. Like, what's with the hate, man? Like, seriously, all these people that used to oppress the Africans are now crying victim and saying how horrible they were and stuff. Like, yeah, I kind of noticed there's a lot of those kind of programs. And there's also the thing with the South Africans. Like, come on, they weren't exactly nice to the black South Africans for years, and all of a sudden, even Britain was in war with the white South Africans during the Boer Wars. They weren't very nice people. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of information about that. And what's with that? Why are they trying to make Africans sound bad? I mean, if you go, I mean, their reaction is understandable after what they've been through, especially if you see Tanzania, like how the Arabs were treating the Zanzibar. It was a slave port. That was the biggest slave port of East Africa. One day, the East African country of Tanzania, mainland Tanzania, literally slaughtered the Arabs in one go at that time, that when they controlled Zanzibar. But you reap what you sow. Like, seriously, they've been killing and selling East Africans for years. And I'm not saying what they did was a good thing, but it's understandable when they reacted one day. It wasn't like slowly, it wasn't like bit, but it was literally they just had enough. And yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And history, people don't forget history, people do not. And I would really recommend to watch that program. Another thing I would like to talk about is, yeah, just a really interesting documentary I watched. And yes, it's just unusually really quiet now, so it's also quite late. So I am Miss Jarina Shooting Star. I'll be back with another blog. Bye.